Hello everyone, Katie here from the Museum of Ontario Archaeology once again. And this morning we're doing something a little bit different, something that we do occasionally with children at the museum, but also it's basically how archaeologists think. That's what we're looking at now, which is reading a group of artifacts. And I have a bunch of things here on the table in front of me, which I'm going to tilt us down to see in a moment. They are all random things that I picked up and put into a little pile. And what we're going to do is we're going to explore how we can look at these and come up with the story that is involved with them without really making things up. So archaeologists, when we look at the artifacts that we find, we don't make up things. We draw inferences from them to inform us of the people who use them or the people who left them behind. And there's a difference between being creative and being logical or using reasoning. In this case, it's a particular type of reasoning called abductive reasoning, or one of the names for it. But what it is what do we see? What can it tell us? What is true and what is a guess? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt us down. We'll see this random sort of assortment of things that I have here on my table. We have a sort of like a barbecue lighter. We have a candle. We have a watch. I think this is one of those things where we have to look at it and think, what is it exactly? If we find this is made of plastic. And I believe it's for holding hair in a ponytail. We have this thing here. We'll come back to that one. We have a little children's book, a bobby pin, a bracelet, a coin. That could be useful. We have some sort of gift card and some tape. So, what do we do with all of these things? The first thing to do is to try to put them into order or organize them into like things. There we go. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to put these into some groupings of things. So we've got some hair things. We've established those are for hair. We have, that's my marker for what I'm going to use to write these things down. We've got a lighter. We've got a candle. Use the lighter to light the candle. So let's put those together. This is still to the side. We don't know what that is. We have a watch. It goes around the wrist. We have a bracelet that also goes around the wrist. The kids' book. It's kind of a little bit of an anomaly. We'll put that one over here. And tape. I don't know. And then the card and a coin. So this here, we'll look at this a little bit closer. This is, if we look at it and we start to draw in from our knowledge. So we know we were talking about seriation the other day where we're using, putting things into orders and putting things into a chronological time frame. We don't have all the same things here, so we can't do that in this case. But we can use our knowledge that we hold in our own minds to figure out what this is. So we've got a button, and it looks like a solar power pad here. And we can try to play with it a little bit, and we'll see it opens up. So it must do something along those lines. So let's push the button and see what happens. Oh, nothing today. I am going to theorize. That's a little power button. You guys can see that a little bit there. I'm going to theorize that this is a lamp. It's not working right now, but it's a lamp. So let's put it with the light over here. So we have a person now. This is one of the things that we do when we do this assemblage activity is that we assume that all of these things belong to the same person. So sort of like how when we find a group of objects on an archaeological site, that we assume based on some science of stratigraphy, which I'm going to talk about this afternoon, that all of those things belong together. They could be from the same people, they could be from the same person, they could be from the same time, but they belong together in some way. And so these all belong to the same person. So what we're going to do is I have a little piece of paper here, and I've got a circle drawn on it, and we're going to use this to create a mind map of the things that we found. So we have lights, we have a candle, and we have a lamp. So candle and lamp. We have a storybook. I don't know why they have that. Let's see if we can figure. We have some hair things. So they have, I'm going to come back to what that can tell us. Hair things, hair ties, hair things. We have watch or timepiece and a bracelet. It's kind of separate, kind of similar. We have a card, a gift card for a certain place, and we have a coin. Now some of these, and we have tape. Let's put the tape on here too. So some of these things are going to be more useful than others, right? The bracelet actually has some information in it that I might come back to. But our coin here is quite useful. So our coin, we hold it up close. We see a little caribou on there. We see Queen Elizabeth II on the back. And we also see that it says Canada. So this is a Canadian coin. It's fairly good reasoning. It's a safe inference to assume that the person who lost these artifacts, lost these things, was in Canada or had visited Canada, had some connection to Canada because they had a Canadian coin in their pocket. Do we know that they're Canadian? We do not. But we know that they have a connection to Canada in some ways. So we're going to add in here, off the coin, Canadian coin, connection to Canada. Now, if we found these artifacts in Ontario, we would already perhaps assume that. But again, this is our proof. We have coin dates and tells the place. That's absolutely right, Darlene. They do. So we're going to look at this coin, and it says 2008 on it. So it's a 2008 coin. Now, this coin, therefore, was made in 2008. That's the minting year. That's the year that it's made. So our coin is going to tell us that all of these artifacts, all of this little collection of things, were lost and left behind in the area where they were no earlier than 2008. So they have been lost for no more than 12 years. 2008 was 12 years ago. So that's a pretty good, useful tool for us, is that we can now say all of these things have been lost no more than 12 years based on our current date of 2020. We also have this card here, this gift card for a well-known Canadian coffee shop. Mostly Canadian coffee shop. But you can find some of these stores in the US too, in Michigan and New York State. So again, it could be somebody from there who came to Canada and bought some coffee, or brought this home with them. Things float around on the border states. So we don't have positives, but if we look at the back here, I bet you we can find Canadian. It is in Canadian funds. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. It's in Canadian funds. So I think that puts us back into Canada. I think now at this point, we don't have a passport. We don't have something that somebody is really like, I am a Canadian, but we can pretty safely infer, we can pretty safely come to a conclusion based on these two things that the person that we're dealing with is either in Canada or from Canada. So we're going to put those aside. And they also perhaps like coffee. maybe? Or are they at least like, or are they like donuts? Or are they like things that go along with things that you can buy there? So they, let's say, maybe like coffee. We don't know that for certain. Maybe they absolutely hate it. Coffee or hot drinks, coffee or tea, things like that. We have a lot of things that are not absolutes. They're not absolute things that we know. Now, we also know that they were traveling around with some things to tie up and hold back hair. So, what can we tell from this? We can tell that they probably have longer hair. Bobby pins can be used on relatively short hair, but they're used to keep hair in place. So we can tell that they have longer hair. It's not super short. And this one here has, if they're using this takes quite a lot of hair to hold that in place. So we can assume based on this too, or we can infer based on this too, that they have quite a lot of hair, or at least long enough hair to put this in. Now, does that tell us if they're a man or a woman? It does not. Because men can have long hair too. Everybody can. So we're not going to make any assumptions on gender today. But they do have longer hair for these tools. So that's something about them that we've learned. Can we tell what color their hair is? Absolutely not. Now this here, this little bracelet, I recognize as something from a long hike that people do in what is called Spain, or what in Spain and France a little bit, and Portugal. The ending point is in Spain. Now, a friend gave me this who has done that hike, so we can't really assume that the Camino Frances, which is what this is from, which is a big long hike in Europe, was done by this person, but perhaps they have a connection to it. But we can tell a little bit by recognizing the iconography, which means the imagery that we see tells us that. So maybe they like hiking, or a friend of theirs likes hiking. And we have a watch. So watches don't tell us a lot, but this is a smaller watch. It's not a big chunky men's watch. So it could be either a younger person, it could be, we could perhaps think about gender in this case. It's fairly small. So it's not going to fit on a huge, huge wrist. In fact, I'm not even sure if it fits on my own wrist. Although it was mine. Let's test it out at some point. Let's see. It just fits on my wrist, so it's pretty small. But don't know that a watch tells, a lot of people wear watches, but they had a watch. They like to tell time. They had a small wrist, smaller wrist. Not child size, but not big either. All right, and we come back to our lights. Why would they be carrying lights? Are they overnight camping? Are they overnight hiking? We thought they liked hiking. Are they overnight hiking with a small child? They have a book to read to them, perhaps. Maybe. Now, I don't know if we can tell much more than what we have here, but if you're following along, I'm going to let's back up here to me again. We've come to some conclusions, but we've not come to all of them. We don't know people's names. Just look inside the book. Do we have a name in there? No, we don't. Not helpful. So we've come to some conclusions. We said they're probably Canadian, or at least they're have either Canadian or in Canada, or been to Canada and acquired these things. They might have been camping, since they have some lights to light their way at night. They were interested in keeping track of time with fairly small wrists. The rubber band, this is masking tape. Now, masking tape is used by hikers to keep their feet from getting blisters, so maybe. We can't say any of those things for sure, but what we have done is we've got a nice little list of information And when we're done, I'm not going to do this with us here today, but what you can do is all of this information can get summarized right in the middle there. We don't have any names. Sometimes we get names if we look at artifacts. Sometimes people have signed the backs of cards and things like that, but not today. So that is basically how an archaeologist looks at the artifacts that they find. What can they tell us? What can't they tell us? How much information do we have? What can we determine based on that? And we'll get a little part of the picture. And what we don't want to do is make up stories, because that's not what we're here to do. We're here to learn about the past by looking at the artifacts that are left behind. I could make up a huge fantastical story about how these artifacts all came to be together. And the closest I've come is to say that maybe they were hiking and they were going to spend the night somewhere. And when I state that, I say maybe. And I say why I think that. Because they have lights, because they perhaps enjoy hiking, but I don't really know. And that's the conclusion that you come to. So if you have any questions about that, if you want to find your own collection of things scattered around your house, put them together, try to figure out how those artifacts, how those things might come together to create a story of a specific person, please do. And send those in to us. We'd love to see them. This afternoon at 1 p.m. I'll be talking about context and stratigraphy, which is kind of what we're doing here. So it's in the same realm of thought. So later this afternoon, 1 p.m., context and stratigraphy. So that's the layers in the ground. Pretty important component of archaeological thought and reasoning. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.